Hello and welcome, as it is the end of the 13th day of December 2017. My name is Derek. Everything you do within your own risk and your own reward. And you will hear amongst people stating, oh, it's very risky to get into cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and the such. Risky. Well, I'm not denying that there's risks associated, which means thus it's risky. But there's also rewards associated. But you don't hear too many people saying, you know, Bitcoin is so volatile. It's just so rewardy. Yes, it's very rewardy. If you are able, of course, to be on the right sides of these trades. Ethereum's breaking out. Is this of any surprise? Well, we noticed, at least within this chart, after this break, that it just goes nicely. When these things go, they oftentimes can go. So I don't know if there's going to be any type of pullbacks or if we're going to have any more significant gains. There was a good couple weeks or such in which the market was in this sideways consolidation after it had a gain and it was going sideways amongst a previous high level. So in the understanding, well, man, how did this thing go up? Or what a surprise it was. No, but there were people waiting a decent amount of time because they thought this thing maybe should have got going days beforehand. But you know what? Sometimes you wait a bit. Bottom line is Ethereum has risen in price. It has overperformed the price of Bitcoin only recently. As we can see on this, that it's had a big move. This is the biggest amount of green candles we've seen. Therefore, a statement is being made for reversal of trend. Price action has risen past, but barely in such, over the last resistance level. But it's also got a lot of room in here. Area in which it had traded before that it is, well, still lower than such. The decline in which it had, well, it's already gotten really just its last little bit from, of course, December. Because I was talking in here about how I really do like Ethereum. And anyone who set stop orders in here, well, that's the exact reason why I do not, never ever plan to ever execute or have any kind of stop loss. Because I have seen so many times, just with my practice account in 2007 and 8 when I was first learning, that whenever I did stop losses, I'm like, geez, every single time I get stopped out, it seems like something like this were to happen. It's just, I'd never figured out how it could ever be an effective strategy for me, so I don't use it. So I'm fine with how I stand as far as my Ethereum position. And I wouldn't be surprised if this thing does a take off later on. Because I mentioned short term, it's overperformed Bitcoin. But over more of the long term, it has underperformed it. But if we go even more long term, and we're looking at this on a 4-day time frame, we can see that it's had some really good gains in the past. There has been two since, well, within the time frame of this chart. One that happened right around the start of 2016. Another one that happened really early into 2017. We're heading into early 2018 relatively soon. Just don't know if that means anything, but this rally in here, substantial gains held through time, but it had a little bit of a fake sell-off beforehand, and then a beautiful rally. We'll hang it through time, and a little bit of a sell-off here. So now that we're standing to that point, or we're within that point, price action has a decent-sized green candle up to this declining average. Let me draw a line where previous resistance happens to occur. And to me, I look at it as in a situation more along the lines of a possible failed breakdown, fast move to the upside that I've seen many times with Bitcoin this year. Even recently with Litecoin, there was a situation. And we're looking at a 4-day chart. So for me to see the patterns come through on a failed move, fast move, price action needs to even move further up to this previous level, and then pretty much needs to do so within the next period, and it's a 4-day time frame, so really by like the end of the weekend, start of the next week. Then quickly thereafter that, although it can spend a couple periods within the band, is break out above and have a decent sized move at least, usually within 1 to 2 periods. So we're looking at what usually would take a span of 3 to 4, and you times that by 4. So over the next couple of weeks, I wouldn't be surprised if a pattern of that nature comes into form. But I also think if you get to a situation of the previous high, just like it did before, I wouldn't be too enthusiastic of that being a tremendously great selling point, although I sell it at all different spots. And I'm always looking to profit take at different areas, but for an aggressive sell level, I think higher prices would probably soon follow thereafter. Now let's move on to Litecoin to finish this video. And it's just unbelievable, but very believable to see what's happening and how the potential for this extreme. Okay. The last couple periods on this same 4-day time frame have been large straight up moves close to previous high on the Bitcoin chart, as Litecoin has been enthusiastically doing well. And yet before, in the months of March, this thing had a huge straight up move. Well, basically it's doing it again. Oftentimes in a big move, when it leaves the 18 average, which is a good resistance area point, in this case no exception, I'm expecting it to come back to it. Now after having a move of this nature, I'm going to be looking along the lines first of a 23.6% Fibonacci from this low and whatever the high happens to be. But I look at this market, I realize there's going to be a lot of volatility. I'm not going to try to necessarily predict, oh, there's going to be a top here and I'm going to bet my stake on it or anything like that. Rather, when Litecoin has these up moves like this, sell it for other various coins. And then when the markets go down, then the opposite would come into play. Let's take a look at this on the US dollar, because quite frankly, with the ratio still over 50 to 1 and the ratio of coins at 4 to 1, meaning there's 4 times as much of a supply for Litecoin as there would be for Bitcoin, that to me a lot of gains could still come into play because of it. And it's very parabolic on the daily chart. It's been a day and change now of just congesting these gains at around the 300 or so ballpark area. So the more time that comes into play without this thing selling off, then the more times people have had to digest the gains, think things over. If they were wanting to sell and they didn't execute, there's probably a good reason for such. And if you start to see any type of movement significantly breaking resistance, then you pretty much know that 4 to 500, 4 and then 500 would be levels that could easily go to very fast, because when these markets go, they could oftentimes go fast, quick, high, and extremely volatile. That's what this is doing now. So there's really nothing to state that this move is over. Whenever you have these major moves, you're going to have big corrections when it's ready to the downside at some point, because it's going up so fast. Especially if it goes up further, I'm going to be throwing out the idea of coming back to $100 per coin. Right now, it would have to lose 2/3 of its value to do such. That's how phenomenal these breakout gains are. So when you start to talk about Litecoin going to levels of like $1,000 to $10,000 into 2018, 2019, that is by far not laughable. It is definitely possible, and I know such just by looking at the breakout of this big resistance level of around 100. That does it so fast at around over a 3x gain on that point. That's, if it just does that on a breakout point, it's going to do phenomenally higher as we move into the months that progress further. At least that's what I'm thinking, and I'm playing towards such, which is why I have such a nice large position in Litecoin. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.